Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's such an honor to be here, and many thanks to my dear friend Bob for those wonderful opening remarks. I have to tell you, if someone had told me when I was a little girl growing up in Ypsilanti, Michigan, I'm amazed some of you know where that is, but you flatter me, that I would get to be here someday as a professional artist and share my passion with you, I never would have believed it. And before I get into a little more on my story, I want to share with you something that I recently saw as a turnaround artist on my visit to Broward County, where I work very closely with Lake Forest Elementary School there. The teacher of the second grade had given her students the assignment to discover watercolors and through them show emotion in color. And I saw many incredible paintings by these young kids, but one stood out to me very quickly. This painting was drawn 3 days after the shooting that took place. For any of you that would like to see it, I printed a few extra copies. So of course I thought about this, and I thought about the little girl who drew it. And when I asked to meet her, she didn't have any words, but she said the painting for her was her way to show how she felt. Well, I could relate to this because when I was a little girl, I didn't always have the words to show how I felt. You see, I felt like I was actually born into the state of cultural confusion, as I describe it. My mother is Mexican, my father is Bulgarian. I had two cultures to learn all about and a new one to assimilate to, and that was American culture. English was actually my third language, and as I was constantly navigating, translating for my parents and all of the new cultural things that had to do with my improbable existence, really, I found music, and singing in particular. And that became my home. You see, it was the marriage of my two passions, the passion and the necessity of language, and of course, melody. And so when I found singing, I knew immediately that that's what I wanted to spend my life doing. Now, I was lucky. My public school program in Ypsilanti, Michigan, had an amazing music program, and I benefited greatly from that. And I certainly wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that public school program. And was fortunate to go on to become a professional opera singer. And as such, much of my work has been abroad. So I want to share with you one story that really had a great impact on me on the power of the arts that I witnessed firsthand. A few years ago, I was asked to go to China, to the National Center of Performing Arts in Beijing, and perform the role of Carmen, the title role. I was excited. I'd never been to China before. I thought this would be a really interesting opportunity. I'd sung the role in about a dozen countries. It was a role I was very passionate about, and actually sort of what led me to opera in the first place. Carmen was my Latina role model when I was a kid, before we had J-Lo and all these, who knows what would have happened. But, I arrived to China, and on the first rehearsal with the orchestra, the conductor, wonderful Chinese conductor, Zhang Guoyang, gave the entrance to the oboe soloist, and he didn't come in. Everyone kind of paused, did it again, and he refused. And the conductor said, why aren't you doing your entrance? And he said, I won't play for an American. And he turned to me and he said, get out, we don't want you here. I didn't really know what to do in that moment. I wasn't there as an American, I was there as an opera singer. I didn't think I was there on a cultural diplomacy mission. I thought I was there to make music with potential new friends and colleagues. But I understood in that moment that a bridge needed to be built and that I had an opportunity to do that. But then the question became how? We've all got to come together to do the show. And slowly, little by little, I used the music and I used all of those things that we can't quite put into words that universal, which I believe to be the language of emotion, to try to connect with these new colleagues who didn't really want me there. I would go in with the children's chorus and try to learn their Chinese melodies. I'd spend some time in the costume shop with the ladies sewing the costumes and sort of listen to them. And, I didn't speak Chinese. They didn't speak much English. And it took weeks. And I went home many nights crying and thinking, why am I doing this? I just want to sing. This is horrible. But I'll tell you, I felt that we were connecting. And by the time we got to the third week and the show was about to go up, I don't know how to describe to you what I went through in that process, but all of a sudden I could tell just by looking at my new colleagues, smiles, glances, that we were connecting. We were connecting on a deeper level than I can even put into words here today. And at the end of the opening night performance, I'll never forget it, I opened my dressing room door. The NCPA is a huge egg-shaped building. And, every night we'd gone to rehearsals, everybody went out, I was never invited. But on this occasion, I opened my door, and every single cast member and every single member of the orchestra, starting with that oboe player, was lined up for what seemed to be, miles. And each one of them bowed to me and they said, Lao She, thank you, xie xie. And that meant, teacher, thank you. And I came out of that dressing room that day and I shook everyone's hands and I was overcome by emotion. Because in this 3-week period, we had gone from essentially being enemies to becoming friends. I've gone back to China now, I think 4 or 5 times to work with that same orchestra. They have become my friends. They've asked me many times about American culture. They've welcomed me back with open arms. And that experience really taught me that the arts are about something much greater than just singing or just music. They are about that universal language. They are about the language of emotion, and they are ultimately about what makes us human. That experience was one that transformed my life. And I think from that, I learned that I want to use my voice, both literally and figuratively, to advocate for the things that I believe in. I'm extremely grateful to Americans for the Arts. The AFTA family has become my family and a source of inspiration and so much learning. And I just want to take a moment and give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And finally, before I conclude, I just want to say there are many of us out there, many like me. We have, I believe, in this country, a surplus of underutilized, underemployed artists that have this abundance of the intrinsic values that I think are missing in much of our society and much of our world today. Values such as compassion, discipline, empathy, creativity. And I like to think of these guys, my colleagues, my beloved fellow singers, fellow musicians, I like to think of them as an army of compassion. That army of compassion is waiting. It is ready in the wings in each of your communities, just waiting to be put to use. So thank you so much for giving me the chance to share my story with you today. If any of you would like a copy of this, please come and see me. And thank you for all that you do. Thank you.